Welcome to the Accomplish More podcast, created specifically for the small business owner who doesn't think small. I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. This show is where you'll learn practical ideas, hints, tips, and tricks to help you grow your small business where you can leverage your time and to accomplish more. Could a virtual assistant help your business? Sharon, do you ever get any puzzled looks when you tell people what you do, that you're a virtual assistant?
Do I ever? They look at me like I grew a second head.
Oh, I know. Me too. But what do you think that their impression is? I mean, what goes on in their mind?
I think a lot of them are familiar with the term virtual and understand that we help, but don't put it all together. Yeah, that we're really behind the scenes.
Like personal assistant.
Yes.
You get folks that think that, well, you're a personal assistant, so you just shadow people and do everything. And it's like, yeah, but we assist people mainly through the computer. Mm-hmm. You know, our computers go through, we do so much with our computer.
Yeah. And that's what makes us virtual. Mm-hmm. We can tap into our computer anywhere.
Yeah. But, most of my adult life, people don't really get what I've done. I mean, even when I was in the medical field, they're like, well, what do you do? Are you a nurse? No. I mean, people have certain labels on things that get us, that we can wrap our head around what people really do. And working in medical billing or managing offices, and I've always, I guess, felt like I've had two heads when people wonder what I do.
Yes.
But today we're going to go over what a virtual assistant is, because I think our audience really needs to kind of understand what we do as virtual assistants and what kind of businesses can they serve, because our business has changed so much in the last, 5 years, 10 years, and certainly the last 15 years. So let's dive right in. Let's define what a virtual assistant really is. I mean, the definition is that a virtual assistant, or VA, because we may throw around VA, the initials, a lot. So for those in our audience that aren't familiar with virtual assistant, but usually people will probably come to the podcast because they have an inkling of what a virtual assistant is and want to learn more. But also, I'm hoping that folks come because they want to be more productive. Mm-hmm. And a piece of that is through virtual assistants. But a virtual assistant is one who aids their clients remotely by doing administrative tasks in their own office with their own equipment. And so that makes them an independent contractor, basically.
Not taking up space in the client's office.
Exactly. And the communication between the VA and their client is typically done through methods such as phone, email. I don't think anybody uses fax anymore, but used to fax, even snail mail, but instant messaging or video conferencing. And you just don't see them in your office every day.
Yeah.
But the main thing about a virtual assistant is that they're an independent contractor. Mm-hmm. But also interchangeably, we can be talking about remote workers. And you can have employees that are remote workers. And that's how we at Scrivener Solutions have set up. Now, we are a virtual assistant company, and we have a team of virtual assistants. So our clients get a service, and we invoice them as independent contractors. But you, Brandy, Norma, Arlene, you guys are all employees of Scrivener Solutions. Mm-hmm. So for me, if I'm not trying to split hairs, I mean, you are virtual assistants. You assist me in so many things, but you're remote workers because of the way our pay structure is. And we accomplish that some of the same methods because I don't see you very often.
No. And one girl on our team I've never met in person.
Exactly.
And probably never will, realistically.
Well,
But that's okay. We see her through video.
Exactly. And so virtual assistant, I mean, there's so many tasks that a business owner has to do. We carry so many hats. I mean, we've got to switch so many hats, and to carve out where to get help, a virtual assistant is a viable option. I mean, really. And so considering a virtual assistant, I mean, that's something. I mean, I'll tell you a little secret. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was many years ago, so against remote working.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, working in an office of medical billers or a physician's office, I was steeped in tradition.
Yes.
And all of our workers, we'd go into the office, we'd have our office hours. You know, when you work for a physician, you have doctor's hours, and you work with a schedule and all of that. And that's what we do, is you go somewhere for work. But our technology has changed a lot. And it makes it possible that we can be more flexible with our workers. We can be more flexible with hours and not have to provide a space for the help that you need.
Yeah.
So that's why I think for many small business owners, considering a virtual assistant is a viable option. Now, years ago, I did have a medical biller that through her maternity leave, she worked from home. And parts of that worked, but parts of it didn't. And I just didn't have a good feeling about that entire time. But my goodness, that has been close to 15 years ago. Technology is so much different now.
It is.
And I think, I mean, in the medical field now, there's like coding from home, insurance claims processing from home. So the industry has changed.
True.
And for me, as a small business owner, when I started as a virtual assistant and helping small businesses with the skills that I have and that they could carve out and be okay with delegating just a little bit of their business to me, well, then I grew and I needed help. And so that's where you came into play, and we started hiring a team. And for me, for being practical, I don't want to pay for office space.
Yeah. Well, we don't need it.
You know, and I don't, if I had office space rent, I mean, for my business plan, I just don't want that. And for practicality reasons, some of our clients, they start out, you know, working an office through their home. And to have someone come in on a part-time basis in their home, it gets a little invasive, you know, and having a regular schedule. And that's why I think that small businesses, why they need to consider a virtual assistant, is that when you start hiring, I mean, first of all, most small businesses, in order to get everything that they need done, they need to get help one way or another.
Right.
And the reason why you need to consider virtual assistants is that you don't have to hire somebody for a set amount of hours.
And invest in training.
Well, that is true. But when you hire someone full or part-time, you have to guarantee them a certain amount of hours. And because in order to retain somebody full or part-time. So even if you hire somebody part-time, then you need to guarantee them 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Or full-time 40 hours a week. You know how stressful it is as a manager or an owner of a business to like fill that time. What are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then how irritating it is if they're twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah.
Or that you've
hanging out on the computer.
Yes, and you perceive that they're going to be wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's important to have somebody working for you and helping you with tasks, but it's very stressful for me
Mm-hmm.
to figure out that I don't think I can guarantee somebody 20 hours, 40 hours, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
a week. And so when you're first starting out and wanting to delegate something, it feels kind of good that it's like, only a couple of hours or just this task, and it turns out to be 2 to 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, you can retain a virtual assistant because they have other clients that are helping support that, and you can learn how to budget for working up to having somebody part-time or full-time.
Right. Because there's not a lot of qualified workers that only want 2 or 3 hours a week.
Exactly. Exactly. And for virtual assistants, and we've got several clients, and it builds up our business, but then it also compartmentalizes that we're focused on a specific time only on their business. And we're not charging for services or working, they're not paying for services that they're not using.
Except for what they need, yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's, whereas years ago I would not have even considered a virtual assistant. Of course, years ago I had never even heard of a virtual assistant. I mean, when was the first time that you'd heard of the term virtual assistant?
Honestly, it was probably only maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Right around when you started discussing it, I had heard the term just a couple of times and didn't really know myself what that entailed. But in 2000, I started as a remote worker for the travel agency that I worked for. And I had done that for 10 years and loved it. Loved working from home and was able to balance the home and the work and everything together.
And so you basically, it's just a different
Transition to a different term.
Well, me too, because my last job being director of operations at a medical management company, I had some workers in the office, but I managed offices in different states.
Right.
And actually, I did not see the big boss man, but maybe 6 times in the 10 years or so that I worked for the company, because we always communicated via phone, he was everywhere.
Yeah.
So when I left the medical industry and I figured out, well, what am I going to do with my life? I was ready to start my own business. That's where the term virtual assistant popped out at me. I was like, I'm already doing this. and the, really whether you're called a virtual assistant or not, because there's so many different types that specialize in different things, and that's kind of going into what types of businesses could a virtual assistant help. Well, when I first started Scrivener Solutions, people did look at me like, I don't even know what a virtual assistant is.
Yeah.
Where that term kind of goes into is the internet world. If you own an internet business, and for so many people that just seems so foreign, because there's so many different industries that have brick and mortar still.
Right.
And there are good businesses that are internet based. But for many folks, it seems still like hocus pocus. But in the internet world, that's where virtual assistants kind of comes into play, because if you're a professional blogger, professional, well, even business coaches and things like that, they have online courses and such. And so they may hire a virtual assistant to help them with their, formatting their blogs and getting emails out. And they work out of their home or work out of their suitcase, so they needed help in that realm. And then brick and mortar businesses, they're stuck with thinking, I need to find somebody that come in an office, provide them a desk, provide them a computer, give them a phone, all of that. But really, brick and mortar offices are missing out if they're not considering some sort of virtual assistants as they grow.
Right.
When I first started Scrivener Solutions, I was already in the, just the medical field for 20 years. And so I was networked in to the medical field. Well, I didn't want to do that anymore. And I wanted to network with different industries. So I started in Springfield, Missouri, in the local community that I was at. I had to tell people what I did. And so I got into a networking group and started saying, hey, I'm a virtual assistant. And it's like, I don't even know what that means. And the more that I explained and the more that we talked about delegating to folks, and people or became open and educated with the idea. One of my first clients was a window washing company. Yeah. And he's no longer a client, which I'm very, and this may sound kind of funny, but I'm very proud of, because what Scrivener Solutions did for him was we became that stepping stone for him, because he was out of his office, his business office was out of his home. And he grew his business. He did his own QuickBooks. He did his own scheduling, answering all the phones, washing the windows, everything like that. Well, he came up to me, he meaning Eric Somerville, with Squeegee Squad. He's a very dear friend of mine. Wasn't at the time, because I was networking, and then he came up to me and he's like, Gayla, I would love to hire you, but I can't afford you. I don't know. I just cannot see how I can afford you. And then we talked about it a little bit, and what I did for him was one little slice. He's like, I don't have time to invoice folks, so I'm going to, if you could help me with that little piece. Well, that ended up being the little piece that I did for him, ended up being like 4 hours a week, roughly, on average. So that's 12 hours a month.
Yeah.
So that was pretty darn cool. And he was able to free up his time, and he was hiring window washers.
Great.
And we got into a routine, and then he got to a point that he needed somebody to answer the phones, and on a consistent basis, so that freed up more of his time. He was ready for somebody in house, and he grew out of his home office into a place where his window washing techs could come and huddle for the morning and then go out. And then I actually helped train his new employee, and that is a great stepping stone. And then we have a heating and air company that we work for and work with, become very good friends. And I started out helping them, and I coached them with their QuickBooks and stuff like that. But we've moved out of that realm, and we as a company don't do a lot of bookkeeping work. But for them, they don't have someone in-house to help them with their marketing. And that's what we had found with many of our clients, whether it's a massage therapist, we help financial advisors, we've helped attorneys, we've helped real estate, what other
Authors.
and I mean, I can't think of an industry that could not benefit from the help of a virtual assistant.
Right.
And because every single business needs to have things done.
And be able to focus on their growth without having a lot of little things holding them down. So, yeah.
And what Scrivener Solutions, what we have specialized in, and virtual assistants can specialize. And in fact, you may want that. There's general virtual assistants, which can kind of help with a lot of things, but not have a specific honed in focus. We at Scrivener Solutions have developed a specialty of content marketing, which includes a lot of things like formatting blog posts, e-newsletters, direct mail newsletters, memes. There's just a lot that social media that we do. That on a consistent basis, that type of stuff, the communication with between a business owner and their customers, sometimes we as business owners fall short on that.
Yeah.
And it is so nice to have an assistant to help us keep that consistent.
Yes.
And one of the things with Squeegee Squad, not only helping him with his invoicing once a week, which he got his revenue more stable. It was sending a thank you card. You don't think that little thing would help, but on a consistent basis, and doing that one little thing. And he was not feeling bad because he was like, oh man, it's 9:00 at night and I've already worked all day and now I have to do these 5 thank you cards. It's only going to take me 10 minutes, but I just don't want to do it. I'll do it tomorrow. And then I won't do it tomorrow. With business owners, we tend to, well, with anybody, I guess, we tend to put off some of the things, and we need help. Accountability and help to get the little things going, because it's so easy just to say, well, I'll do it. It's only going to take 10 minutes. I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow turns into a week and a month. And then you realize, oh, dang it.
Fallen behind.
And it gets overwhelming. And so having someone like a virtual assistant where you can just chunk things down and just delegate one little piece certainly helps.
Yeah.
And virtual assistant is not just for an internet business, like we said. Brick and mortar should really consider, because think about the task that you have to or need to or want to delegate, and chunk it down. I like to say chunk it down, because when you're overwhelmed, you just think of everything all at once, but chunk it down to the little bits. And virtual assistants can specialize, and they may not be called virtual assistants.
Right.
Bookkeepers. You may hire a bookkeeper for your business because you need your QuickBooks updated, or whatever bookkeeping system you have, so that when those transactions are entered, it's data entry. Having somebody that does that data entry for you makes it a lot easier for the accountant. And it's just one of those things. They may not call themselves a virtual assistant.
Right.
But are they working in your office? A website developer.
They usually do not work in your own office.
No. And social media. Goodness, I've kind of gone a blank of what all, different specialties. In the real estate industry, I know that there are virtual assistants that are specific for real estate. They know how to do those listings on all the different websites for the house. They know what forms need to be filled out and how to keep that organized, and helping with the realtor's appointment book and making sure they're at the right place at the right time, and following up with, the realtor's customers. They may or may not be licensed. I know that there's different issues because I've got friends that are realtors, that certain tasks the assistant would need to have a realty license. But certainly within a particular industry, there's virtual assistants that are paralegals. And that is a tremendous help for an attorney. And because the attorney may not have a traditional office, or they may, and they have other attorneys, but they need somebody answering their phone, but then helping prepare certain documents. Now, we have a client that's an attorney, but we help with her marketing with just one slice of her marketing, and that's a direct mail newsletter. So there's just, because that falls within our specialty. But really, how do you find a virtual assistant? If do
you take it an ad?
Sometimes, sometimes you have virtual workers and things like that. But my thing is that you can Google it, find virtual assistants. There is a website called VA Networking, and that's at vanetworking.com. And there's also Virtual Staff Finder, and those are very good places for freelance workers. But, to me, your business is like your baby.
Yeah.
And you want to take, extra care on who you just, find work. It just depends on the task. And I think the best thing is to learn about virtual assistants. You start following folks, you build a relationship, and then when it's time to delegate something, then depending on what it is, then you know what service you may want to go with.
Yeah.
And something like Virtual Staff Finder, they have a huge network of freelancers. Somebody that might make a logo for you, or somebody that will do your bookkeeping, and they're from all over the world. And for some folks, it doesn't matter for the business owner. I just want this done, and I don't care if you're in Puerto Rico or if you're in Germany, or I want you, in the same state. And there's different styles and different things that, what are you comfortable with delegating? So doing the research, I think, is very important, and being open-minded of what options are there out there. And of course, we would love you to follow Scrivener Solutions, because I think that a very successful relationship with a virtual assistant and a client is building up that relationship.
Yes.
And sometimes you're not ready for that right now. And it's okay. Just opening up your mind of what can you transition into. There's also a website called Fiverr. Have you ever heard of that one?
I hadn't till you mentioned it.
That's a huge network of finding freelancers, and maybe you need a logo done real quick, and you can get some bidding done, and people will, you'd put out a job out there, and then people would bid for it.
Oh, gotcha.
But I think that you always don't want to go with the cheapest. You want a good value. But depending on what you need, whether it's short-term or long-term, one project, one time, and make that investment, or do you want a long-term type scenarios? So there's a lot of freelancers and or virtual assistants. There's so many interchangeable words.
Yeah.
But be careful. That's why I think that building a relationship, and if there is any any company out there that's not willing to build up a relationship with someone, and that means that you may, as a business owner, follow them on social media. You may look at their blog posts, listen to their podcasts, and you start to see what that company, what they stand for. Does it align for what you believe in, and things like that?
Well, it's like an interview process to find your own virtual assistant. And also, if you're looking on their social media and they're not posting consistently or haven't in 6 or 7 months, are they still around? What are they doing?
Exactly.
And if they're unable to keep their own consistency, are they going to be able to keep yours consistent?
And I know I belong to some virtual assistant communities and network online, and there's a lot of small business owners of virtual assistants, and they are working. They may have like 4 or 5 clients, and that is great. And so collectively, of those 4 or 5 clients on a consistent basis, that makes them whole for their paycheck. And then there are companies like us that have grown, that we have many, and we specialize in certain things, and we build those relationships because we still want to have that relationship with our clients. Now, I was in an email conversation with someone new recently that she's very interested in our business, and she's like, well, I've tried virtual assistants in the past, but I've never know who's working on my stuff. I may throw them a whole bunch of data, and then they come back at me with a great spreadsheet. So I guess it doesn't matter, but still, it just depends on what task you want to delegate. But there are so many options, and as a business owner, if you open up your mind and think of the task versus having to hire somebody full or part-time, and you're shifting that. Now, I know for me, you started doing my social media. That was one of the things, and that I would pay you to stay that consistent. And actually, for the whole company, for all of our clients, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You do the social media to keep that consistency, keep that communication going. And for me, that saves me a ton of time because now I'm looking at other things.
Yeah.
For me, what works is hiring somebody that I know, or that there's an interview process and that I feel comfortable with letting into my company.
Yeah.
One of our clients that worked with us, we've worked with him for like 2 or 3 years. He wanted someone to do some design work. And design work is very subjective. And people's design, people's artistic abilities are different because our different styles. We do some design work, and Brandy is very good at design, but we all have our style. What if our style does not fit with what our clients need? Well, they may need to seek a designer.
Yeah.
Well, I found some designers that he could interview, and one of the things, the first time he had somebody recommend him and a designer for this project, and that relationship didn't work. Well, first of all, he didn't do an interview, but that particular virtual assistant would not talk to him on the phone or video conference. It was all through email.
Yeah.
And he has a style that he needs that interaction. He can't get what's going on in his head out on paper. And things with design, it's hard to
It's hard to understand what they're emailing you. Sometimes even talking about.
And also, I think, especially for design, I mean, this is my opinion. I mean, there's different styles of working with clients, and this particular designer is very successful. So but not all clients work and communicate the same way. But for him, he needs to kind of talk out. And I'm very similar in that I like to hear from our clients and get them, you know.
Yeah.
And once I understand and get them, we work better together.
Yeah.
And he had to end up he's like, Gayla, I had to cut my losses. I just paid for a product that I wasn't happy with because I asked if we could be, talk on the phone. She said no. She didn't give me the product that I had emailed and what I was looking for. She gave me 3 choices of something totally different. And so what I did was give him some other referrals. And I said, first of all, don't pick the first one that you talk to because you need to interview. And sometimes you get this good feeling with someone. And so he went ahead and interviewed 2 other folks, maybe 3, but he had it narrowed down to 2. One of them, he's like, I really like the guy and he's connected and all of this, but his style is not quite like, I want. And I said, well, you have to consider that. The style is important.
Yeah.
Well, then the other lady was like, she's just getting enthused with my project, and I've seen some of her other work, and I think this is going to be phenomenal. I said, you need to choose that and give her a chance, because what he wanted was a long-term relationship with somebody that got him.
Yeah.
And what we do for him, we get him, and we're doing this, but he's building his virtual team to focus on particular parts of his business. And I'm proud to say that designer, will meet with him in person.
Good.
And they talk on the phone, and it works with his style. Her style, not just design, but their communication style is very similar. And she has produced some fantastic products, for what he needed. So don't shy away from working with a virtual assistant because you have a bad experience one time.
You got to find the right one.
Exactly. It's a big step. I mean, it's a huge step to reach out and ask for help. And, when you're a small business, considering getting that help, you have to really think how.
Yeah. Where's it coming from?
Where's it coming from, and why do you want to do it, and is it going to benefit you? But if you need help in your business, you just have to consider all the options. And the more educated you are about it, the better decision you have.
Better choices you
can make. And we've got a free book on our website on scrivenersolutions.com that I'd like to invite everyone listening to go download. And it's called The 5 Things You Must Know Before Hiring a Virtual Assistant.
Great information there.
And it's a free ebook. And if you just go to, the link is on our show notes, but if you're on our show notes, you're on our website.
Yeah.
So. Unless you're in
right
iTunes. But Scrivener Solutions, and that's spelled SCRIVENER solutions.com. And you'll see that free ebook. And that will outline the basics that you need to know. And I won't lie to you, you're going to be on our email list. I want to build a relationship.
Yeah.
Whether you're thinking about or long-term, or whether you ever use Scrivener Solutions as a virtual assistant, that doesn't matter. I just want to be able to help you in any way on your journey as a small business owner.
Help you accomplish more.
Yes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show and find the information helpful that we've given, and that it gives you a path of accomplishing more. And remember to go download that free book.
Yeah.
And until next time, We hope you have a fantastic week.